Hello, everyone. It's your host, Dmitry Shevchenko, and our guest today is Alan Snyder, owner of physical therapy clinic called Breakaway Physical Therapy, located in Manhattan, New York. Hello, Alan.
What's going on, Dimitri? How you doing, man?
Very good, very good. Happy to have you today. So, Alan, to our listeners, so tell me, where is your clinic located, and what's the specialty of your clinic?
All right. Well, thanks you definitely for having me on. I'm located on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, specifically on 91st Street. My specialty, I treat a lot of things here, but what I mainly focus on is one-on-one individualized therapy. My background was being in outpatient orthopedics, which is what I do now. And then I worked for 9 years doing acute care just at the Hospital for Joint Diseases, seeing post-op hip, post-op knee, while I also did home care. And I built my practice out of necessity because I used to have a lot of patients that I would refer to the different clinics in the area. And I'm not going to name names or bash anybody, but you start to hear the positives and the negatives of other clinics. And I just remember hearing feedback. And I thought to myself, I can do a better job than that. So what I decided to do was keep my overhead low. And what I do is I see my patients one-on-one for an hour, where we do a lot of hands-on work. We do some exercises, we use some modalities, and my patients put in the work, I put in the work, and people generally get better. And that's how therapy should be: more individualized, more custom, and less about the burn and churn mill philosophy that's ruining healthcare right now.
Absolutely, absolutely, Alan. That's great. And before opening your clinic, so you mentioned you work in a hospital, right? You did acute care and you did home care?
Correct.
Very good. And when did you open your clinic?
About 5 years ago, I started where I just rented some space. And then I mean, of course, the hard part is getting your first patient. But once you get your first person in the door, then it's all about building, and you build rapport. And, the days of mailers and yellow pages are not a thing anymore, but people tend to use the internet and they start telling their friends, and you get people to start coming more and more and more. And then it took me about a year and a half before I got too busy. I didn't have the time, because what I was doing was I was hustling. I was working at the hospital on Saturdays. I was seeing patients privately before work, after work. And then eventually I just got busy enough that I had to quit my full-time job. But I kept the hospital thing because I liked it. I really enjoyed seeing patients, seeing the spectrum of post-op day one.
Alan, which hospital was it?
I think they changed the name, but it was the Hospital for Joint Diseases on 17th and 2nd. Now it's called the Langone Health Orthopedic Hospital. It's an amazing hospital. I have nothing bad to say. It's a top 10 hospital. Most people know HSS. That's the number one in the nation.
Sure.
HJD, it was kind of the kid brother. We always ranked in the top 10, but it wasn't quite HSS. But great hospital, great stuff. And there's nothing like seeing patients that are literally struggling to get out of bed. And then, I used to work with them in home care, and now I focus mainly on the getting them back to 110%, not 100%, because we can do better than that.
Sure.
So that's what I pretty much do now with my time. And I love it. I love what I do. I love that I work for myself. I love that I make my own rules, and it's a learning process. And 5 years in, I still make mistakes on the business side of it, not making mistakes clearly with treating clinicians. And you have to keep sharpening your tools, because things change in healthcare with insurances, with documentation, and you get better and better, and you really grow as a clinician, and you grow as a person too, because it's all about communication. And
absolutely,
nobody's the same. Every single patient you have is different.
Alan, at what point, since you opened the clinic, you went all in? You made it your full-time thing. How many years since you opened 5 years ago until you became a full-time PT owner?
Right. So, it took a good year and a half, which from what I understand is not terrible.
It's really
because
good. Really
a lot
good,
of, now I kept my part-time gig on the weekends kind of because I liked it. But at the beginning, for
home
that
care?
first, no. The home care I got rid of very quickly. So I was working. Yeah, well, actually, yes. At the beginning, it was home care with a weekend thing, and then the side hustle of being a business owner. And the business owner was 3 patients a week, maybe 2 patients a week. So I was robbing Peter to pay Paul, because I was working my home care job and I was working my hospital job just to afford the overhead and rent, because you should start off with money in the bank, because you're just not going to meet rent profit is not an option for your first couple months. And anybody who thinks they're going to open up a clinic and start profiting $10,000, maybe you'll get there with gross revenue, but it's going to take some time to build that up.
Sure.
And so it took me about 1.5 years, and then I quit my full-time job, but I kept my weekend job just out of fun. But that's when I was really all in. That's when I had some moments. And of course, as soon as I quit my full-time job, business went down. And that's when you start waking up in the middle of the night like, oh my God, what am I doing? Oh my God, oh my God. And you sit and you pray and you think and you start marketing and you start doing everything you can. And as a business owner should know, is being desperate is the worst thing. Dogs can smell fear. Patients can smell desperate. Clinicians, business, anything. And every day, I mean, I've been doing this for 5 years now. I'm at the point where I should hire somebody. I'm at the point where I should start turning people away or raising rates. But then I'll have a bad month. COVID aside, I'll have a bad month. I'll have a bad week. And that's when you start thinking to yourself, maybe I should eat ramen tonight for dinner because I don't know if I'm going to be able to afford things. And it's stupid. It's so dumb. But these are the things that you go through as a business owner. I mean,
absolutely. That anxiety never leaves you, regardless how big or how small you are, because you can't predict your pay every month, once you're still kind of establishing yourself. And that question of when you should hire someone, it's a very common question I get from some of my clients that I have. And it's a tough question. It's really tough, and it's really hard to answer that question. At what point do you sacrifice your personal revenue and hire someone? But at the same time, if you don't hire someone, you sacrifice your business in a way, because then you can't, kind of be involved with the operations and management, 100%, because you have to provide care to your patients, right? And you have to spend
absolutely.
time on documentation and all the good stuff. Alan, so you have no partners, I'm assuming, right? So you went all in, and the space that you rented in the beginning, is it still the same space from 5 years ago, or you have expanded at this point?
So I have a very unique setup. So the short answer is I've expanded, but because commercial real estate on the Upper West Side, you are very, very limited. And I actually called a storefront property, and for maybe it was 400 square feet, which is the size of a large bedroom, I guess. They were asking for the low rent of $9,000 a month. And I was like, you have got to be kidding. Do you know how many knee replacements I have to fix to make $9,000? So using a little ingenuity, I went to a couple buildings in the area. I have a friend who does real estate, and I sat down and brainstormed with her, and I'm so grateful for her help. She said, why don't you try to find a place? Maybe they even have their own gym, but you're not gonna be able to find anything like a co-op, because that was my first idea. Was, why don't you just find a co-op? I said, I thought I could find a co-op. And she goes, a co-op's never going to let you work out of their building. I said, no. They'll never know. And she said, you're an idiot. They're going to find out in about 5 minutes. They're going to kick you out, keep your deposit, and you're going to have real problems.
Mm-hmm.
So I found a rental building. And it's a very nice setup. And I started off in a studio apartment. The cool thing here is I have a full gym that is shared with residents of the building. But most people who live up here, they're either working from 9 to 5, or they'd rather go to the hipster gym across the street. So we have some personal trainers in the building that use the office, but I use the office here, starting off in a tiny studio. Then I moved to a bigger 1-bedroom where I use the bedroom more just for like an office and whatever, but I have a much larger working space, which is nice. And then 2 years ago, I moved across the hall because my view was a brick wall. And when you're inside all day, every day, and it's such a Manhattan thing, I was like, I need some sunlight. I'm really starting to wear this. So it's been 2 steps up, I guess, since I first started.
Mm-hmm. So you have a gym that you guys share, right? The building. And so how big is the office space that you have itself?
Oh my God. Including the bedroom that I don't use for treatment, the whole thing's 700 square feet, maybe 800 square feet. It's not very big, but it's enough that I have a bike, I have some chairs, I have 2 treatment tables that I usually just use one as a desk to do documentation on. Very rarely will I overlap patients, but if I ever do have to, it happens rarely, but it's quaint. We get to know each other pretty well.
Very good. Very good. And you're allowed to use the gym at any point, right? From 6 till 8, or there's certain restrictions on the hours?
Things are restricted obviously right now with quarantine and whatnot, but
right.
No, as far as times, I don't think there are times. It's a building where people are pretty nice, and you respect the people that are here. You respect the residents. You respect everybody. I've never had an issue with time or anything.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, it's a very unique setup. I'm not going to lie. It's very different, but I get a lot of patients that are just like, you know what? You give me 100% of your attention all the time. That's great. I love it.
Actually, we have a few clients that sublease gym space throughout different parts of the country, but it's a thing. It's a thing.
Yeah.
It's actually become very common, to cut down on rent. Alan, so what was your investment 5 years ago when you started? Yeah, your
So
clinic.
as far as the amount of money that I had to put in,
Yeah.
I guess, I mean, look, you had to put in the security deposit. You had to put in first month's rent. I started with these tables, these mats as a PT that were $99 each. And within, you get what you pay for. Within a couple of months, I was now putting down yoga mats on top of it because people would lie down on these mats and complain how bony and everything it hurt. I got an E-stim ultrasound. I would say all in everything, $10,000 to $15,000.
Mm-hmm.
And like when you buy a house, you furnish it slowly.
Sure.
I've upgraded many things. I have now, I laugh because I had these really, really nice therapy tables that I bought 2 years ago. And people asked me how much they cost. And I said, well, one of those is worth more than 3 of what I used to have. I mean, probably even more than that. But I've upgraded to so many different things here. And I try to include, like, I have a cold laser now, and I get all the, the Graston scraping techniques. There's so many toys and bells and whistles. It's almost like every time I have a really good month, I go into Amazon. I'm like, ooh, let me get a new toy to play with my patients.
Sure. Okay. Sounds good. Alan, so since COVID started, how many patients did you lose? Let's put it in percentages. So if you had 100% volume, in beginning of March, May or beginning of June, how many, what percentage of patients were you left with?
Yeah, well, I was probably over capacity. So which is a fair number to use in our field, because if I work an 8-hour day and see 8 patients, that's 100. I was seeing 10. I also do some weekends now. So I'll see like 50 visits a week.
Mm-hmm.
And then that dropped in March when that's kind of things really got bad. That dropped very quickly. So I probably went down to about 60% from there. And then at the end of March, talking about losing patients, I got COVID. So I don't know who gave it to me, how, where, or when, but on a specific Saturday, I just didn't feel so great that night. And then the patient I saw that morning, who is pretty sure that I gave it to her, I think she gave it to me, whatever. She's okay. She survived. We both made it through it. I had a much better time being young and healthy getting through it. But starting March the 27th, so if I was already down to 60% capacity, I went to 0. I shut down, doors locked. I was in bed for a week or two, and I didn't think about reopening until middle of May. And then I slowly started opening back up. So I can't even use a percentage, Dimitri. I'll just say I had 2 patients maybe a week, maybe
Got it.
3.
Got it.
And I've built back up slowly. But what I'm doing now, because I do work in an intimate space, I space all my patients out by at least a half hour. So whoever comes in at 10, they don't run into anybody ever, because 11:30 is my next slot. So right now I'm seeing, like, Mondays and Tuesdays are busy, but Wednesday I have 3 patients, and that's pretty bad. So
Right.
I would say right now, after really grinding and getting back up, and I don't hit people up or force them to come back in. When they want to come, they can. I'm probably at like 40% right now, maybe 50%.
So you still 50% capacity from before. Got
Yes,
it.
I just got my first post-op patient during COVID. I heard rumors they're doing surgeries right now, but
Right. I think they started maybe 3 weeks ago already, orthopedic surgeries. So yeah.
but it takes time, because the patient gets 3 weeks ago is a great number, because 2 or 3 days in the hospital, maybe if you're lucky, then 2 or 3 weeks in home care, and then you progress to outpatient. So
Sure.
I just got my first one today, and their surgery was 3.5 weeks ago. So I have a feeling if you and I had this conversation in a month or two, my number will be much higher.
Okay. Sounds good. Alan, so it leads me to my next question. In terms of referrals. So how do you get your patient? What is your best referral source, and what do you use for referrals? Is it doctors, marketing tools?
No, I don't know exactly who listens to this and how they're thinking, but I would just go ahead and say that doctors might be the worst source for referrals. I don't know what other people have said, but I have wasted more time and money marketing doctors. It's the worst thing in the world. I went to this great business course one time and they said marketing a doctor is like going up to a woman at a bar who doesn't know you and you just look at her and you say, listen, I know you don't know me, but I'm really good at what I do. And if you come home with me tonight, you're going to start sending all your friends over me tonight too. And that's how it comes off for doctors. So if anybody takes anything from that, if you need people, it's the same thing with like that desperation. Like doctors can feel it. So for me, getting the first person in the door was the hardest. And I was lucky that I started working and then people started finding me because it was a gray area. I didn't take my patients from home care, but I would finish with them and tell them they need to go to outpatient. And they'd be like, but can't I just come see you? I said, listen, when we're done, if that's what you want to do, that's fine. But like, you have to be 100% homebound. Here's where you go. So
Sure.
I got a couple of people luckily from that. Furthermore, they have told friends. I've been doing this for 5 years now. So I'm at the level where I get patients who have come from other patients who have come from other patients. It's like 3, steps of Kevin Bacon almost, right? You start, hopefully I get to 7, right? That's the goal. But using them and using online marketing, I guess. But I guess it's more the word of mouth is the reviews people leave for you
Sure.
online.
That's the
And
best referral
I
source, of course.
it's the new word of mouth because yeah, I had a lady this morning call her Mrs. Smith, a generic name. And she's like, oh, I've already told one of my friends about you. I said, if you really want to make a difference, writing something nice online is going to help all the other friends that don't know me. And I get a lot of calls. I take a lot of pride in my work. I really do. And while I want to be the Tesla of physical therapists, I will care more than anybody. I really, really care. I take so much pride in my patients and they can feel it and they know it. And they call me their first visit and they go, you have 49 5-star reviews. How is that even possible? And I said, I don't know, but I'm going to try. And if you work with me, I'm going to try the best I can to get you better. And they give me a chance and then they become my best salesman. So for me, that's what's been the best. But you have to be the best too. You have to really put the work in and make sure you're getting your people better. And if you start looking at this as diagnoses or as money, you will fail immediately.
Sure. Alan, so you mentioned 49 reviews. Is that on Google?
Yeah, Google, Yelp, I think are probably my two best ones. Of course, Yelp can be a little tricky because if patients post on Yelp or I don't know about you use it for restaurants. If you go on, you've never used Yelp before in your life and you go have the worst meal and you're like, I'm going to write the worst review. Yelp doesn't post reviews from people who post once every never. They only value, it's like a thinking, breathing, it's like Instagram, right? Everybody's trying to make it a living, breathing entity. So Google can be good, but Yelp will filter and censor some of the stuff. So yeah, Google is a great place. I think there's other sites I've looked into for PT review stuff, and before you know it, they're charging you a lot of money to even be on their site. And those things and SEO, you can really fall down a really bad path, and you can end up spending a lot
Sure,
of bad money.
absolutely. So do you spend any money on these tools at all, or on Yelp
I
or Google or
I
anything?
So I was using Yelp at least when I first got it started. I started off at a
Sure.
very small investment there, just a couple $100 a month, and it would get people in the door. And then I even bumped it up a little bit, but then you get to the point that you start to have a steady referral system, not to mention you have patients that are just Googling Upper West Side Physical Therapy. And with all the reviews that you build up, starting a business, profiting with the business, being successful is such a marathon. And I thought it was going to be a sprint. I mean, I think very highly of myself. I thought I was going to get there immediately, and I didn't. And it takes time to build that up. It's a side hustle. You can start your own business, but the same way you said, when did you go all in? And it takes a lot longer than you think, and it's a lot of work. And I have one of the most rewarding jobs because I made it that, but it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and there's a lot of paperwork, a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of vacations that I have my phone on. There's a lot of vacations I bring my computer with me. I'm always on call. I develop these personal relationships that patients value, but at the same time, my phone's always on. It really, really is. I might turn it on silent when I go to bed, but people know that I'm there for them, and they really appreciate that.
Alan, so you give your personal number to your patients? They have your cell phone?
They do have my cell phone for my patients. It's not hard to block people. I know sometimes people get a little weirded out, like, you give it out? I said, yeah, and it's okay because they don't expect me to text them back at 12 o'clock night. And if something bad ever does happen or they're leaving messages, you can block people very easily. And for me, that was another expense. When I first got started, I said, all right, let me start off just using my same number. And then eventually I'll transition to my own private line. But I don't know what a cell phone and what a plan can cost because I still use the same one. I mean, I'll just say right now, I'm on a family plan with my parents. So I pay them a very tiny amount, and that's one less expense. So call it $100, call it 150. I really don't know. I know it's something in there. That's $1,000 at the end of the year. And 5 years later, that's $5,000 that I've saved. And
Sure.
the only weird part is when friends or other people, like, the food delivery guy calls you and like, I think I got the wrong number. It's some physical therapy message. I'm like, no, it's my business phone. But I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I know people that say having a Gmail isn't professional, but these are little things that
Yeah,
most
you're
people
right.
don't even consider.
Right. When you, again, when you're small, those things don't really matter. I guess when you grow and you need to hire people, that's when you want to switch to, I guess, some more, kind of full scale phone system or, corporate
Full
email.
scale is a great name for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you own 18 clinics and have all these people under you, I probably don't want to be Breakaway PT at Gmail. I might need to get something slightly
Sure.
different.
Alan, so you schedule your patients yourself?
I do. Time working in home care, it's not, we go to physical therapy to help people, and home care is probably the least sexy other than wound care. But being in home care, you have to schedule your own patients. You make your own schedule, and
Sure.
you get really good. And my patients still laugh at me all the time. Now, I have two cell phones. I only use one for my thing, but I have two cell phones. I have an iPad. I have multiple computers. I still use a pen and paper. I carry around a notepad because I do not make mistakes with that. I can take calls. I can make everything. I can bring it with me when I go somewhere. I schedule my patients, and the second before they leave my clinic, I always say, when am I going to see you next? And that's their way to say, let me let you know. Or, oh, we have Tuesday at 10. And I've made enough mistakes that I always look right away and go, oh, Tuesday at 10, boom, you got it. And it's right there. So I make my own schedule. Also, being more as a boutique therapy clinic,
Sure.
things come up. I play softball, I go away, I do my own things, and it's a lot easier and I have it in my own phone versus having somebody at the front desk where it's like, Mindy, I have softball next Tuesday or whatever, because those things change a lot too. Not to mention there's rainouts and there's changes and this and that. I keep everything. Organization is number one if you're running your own business.
Absolutely.
There is I can't tell you how many times, somebody called, let me write this down later. When something happens, you do it immediately because you will forget. You will take a call and go, I have to call Sam later or whoever. And then next thing you know, your patient says something and then you forget what you had to do, but you have to be on top of all your organization. Same thing for notes, same thing, because if you're going to do the work, you want to get paid. And I've had friends that have fallen behind on their notes so bad that they say, you know what? Maybe I'll just start over and just start from scratch. I said, you've already done the hard part. You've already done the work. Get your money.
So, Alan, this leads me to my next question for scheduling and documentation. And what do you use for scheduling and documentation?
Yeah. So I use for scheduling a pen and paper, like I said, because that also allows me to flip the notepad up. I mean, I have one of those things, what are they, like 3 inches by 2 inches, just a little, my friends call me Sherlock Holmes because I really will be in a bar or whatever, and somebody will text me and I take out my little notepad and write it down. They're like, all right, Inspector Gadget, like, what are you
So
doing
it's
over
not
there?
an actual calendar, it's a notepad?
It is a blank notepad that I write the day, the month, and the day of the week. And then I write down the schedule of the patients right there. And then I will use as I flip it up, as things happen throughout the day, I get a call, I can flip it up, write down, because it's easier, when you're on the phone and somebody calls you and they want to, do you, you're in my insurance, or where do I go for this? You can write it up, and I write little notes. And then at the end of the day, I look back over that top of it. And if there's something I didn't get to, I just do it right there, right then. And it is the most archaic system. And I'm sure there's a million better ways to do it. But for me, I've been doing this now, including home care, for about 10 years. And I make way less mistakes than the iPhone scheduling, different things like that, because you don't always have it on you or near you. And I love it. And I just don't care right now, because right now it works for me. As far as documenting, I use WebPT. It's something that I started a while ago, and I've looked into other EMR systems, and I find that they're similar. Some are slightly better, but I have gotten so good at WebPT that I can get notes done so fast. I love the way it prints out. I love the way I use it. And I would switch if something was considerably cheaper, because WebPT, I think, is something like $180 a month, and they
Does that
charge.
include scheduling?
I don't even know. I think so. I think it
You
includes.
don't, but you don't use it. That's what I'm just okay.
I don't use it,
Got
but I
it.
think it does. And yeah, it's like $180 a month, and they hit me up every single month that my business was closed, which was kind of ridiculous. And there might be a yearly fee as well. And I've looked into some of the other ones. They're just as expensive, if not more. So I was
Got
like,
it.
you know what? If it's not broke, don't fix it. WebPT is so good with when you put your doctor's names on it, then
Mm-hmm.
the next time when you go in, it's already there. So after I've been doing this for 5 years. So
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
the first time you have to input in insurance, you don't even know where you're clicking. And the same thing with the doctors. And then, but it's like anything. It's like when you get a new remote, you're like, what's the power button? And
sure.
then after a year of doing WebPT, I mean, I used to literally, I've never told anybody this, especially doing Medicare notes. I would type up the note and then you'd hit submit, and then it'll be like, you have 18 errors. And I'd have to go back and try to fix it. I got to the point that I would stop, cross my fingers, and then hit submit. And I'd be like, please, 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 please. And it's so dorky, but I don't think I've ever told anybody about it. But I used to get really nervous. But I'm at the point now where I'm a whiz. I mean, I can do it while the
Sure,
patients are there. You can input everything.
sure, sure, sure. Do you actually do your notes when patients are there? You spend, a certain amount of time completing your documentation with the patients, or not really?
So for an eval, no, my computer is closed. I write everything down. I make sure I get the copies of what I need. I have them fill out everything. And then at night, I sit down and it takes me about 30 minutes to kind of type in most of the stuff that I need. I also like to take the time to think a little bit more. I really don't want to write the same generic goals. Patient will be able to do this, do this. You could probably, when the person says I have knee pain, you could most likely just write in what they're going to be doing for the next 8 weeks anyway. So for the evals, I try to do it on my own time. For the daily notes, WebPT copies everything forward so nice for me that I
Mhm.
usually open up the notes before the day starts. And then as patients come in, they say something subjective, I write that down, which they appreciate. With the exercises that they do, I keep a hard flow sheet on me at all times, and I type in the stuff into the system. It's very clicky. Then it's just a matter of, usually as we're finishing up, because I only have one person in my office, I'm doing a lot of chit chatting, and then I
Sure,
go into
sure.
this. Then I go to the simple. All right. So, and I actually discuss my assessment with the patients right there and then, and they appreciate it because they know, because it's this. I don't know if OTs do SOAP notes, but for the subjective, they know what they said. Objective, they can see what they're doing. And plan, they generally know where we're going. But the assessment, they have no idea what I'm thinking. But I like to tell them flat out where they are. I love giving them compliments. But I also, if I have to say, listen, I think you might need to be working more on this, we discuss it. We come up with everything together at the same time. And that's usually what I can write in right. And I say to them, like, all right, good, good. That's what I'm going to write in right now. And I'll say, patient tolerated treatment well. They did, and I didn't elaborate. So I try to get 80 to 90% of my daily notes submitted, done when the person is in the clinic. And
Makes
then,
sense.
and on non-evaluation
Hmm.
days, even when I was seeing so many patients, zero paperwork at night, which zero done. Get good at your paperwork and you have less work, which is why I'm the dummy that takes on extra patients, because I don't go home to 3 hours worth of notes. When I used to work in a clinic and I had 27 patients a day, you can't get done 27 notes in a day. It's impossible. My first summer in New York, I was spending 3 hours a night. I was 8 hours in the clinic, 3 hours at night doing notes. Miserable, absolutely miserable.
Makes sense. Alan, so for your EMR system, do you run any reports to see how many patients you've seen, or how many notes still outstanding? Any reports that you utilize within WebPT at all?
So I don't run any reports. I think they do run reports, but as far as outstanding notes, when you open up the note, which again, I try to do, I know my schedule. And as the person is in there, I open them up ideally first thing in the morning, which takes me 20 minutes to do, if that. At the end of the day, there's a little tab that says incomplete notes. And I was like, oh, I forgot to sign off on this one. And I sign it off. So as far as not knowing that, I don't keep the most accurate notes of all this stuff. It's kind of weird because even being an out-of-network clinician, I get reports from the insurance companies. So I know how much money's coming in and everything. And I use a third-party billing system. So they do all of my submitting and billing. And that's also really nice because as much as I'm on top and I do a decent job, they only get paid for what they collect. So they are very on top of my notes. And if a note is outstanding for too long, or if I have patients that haven't been discharged, they're like, oh, what's going on with this person? I'm like, oh, you're right. So I'm the owner of my own company, the CEO, the top dog, any way you want to call it. And I still have somebody above me, my billing people, that are like, you need to get this stuff in, man.
So you use a billing company, and so this billing company, what's the percentage that they charge?
They take 7% of the I guess it's the gross of what they collect, which kind of sucks because, you know, I get the net after taxes.
Sure.
And as much as that really, really stinks, you know, I remember meeting a clinician that I was going to see for treatment years ago, and he was telling me this. I said, wait a minute, what if one day I am making $1 million? I'm going to now pay, you know, all the 300, or my number's off, crazy. Wow. $70,000 to these people. And my guy looks at me and goes, yeah, but you're making 93% the other way to do next to nothing. And I went, yeah, you're right. Yeah. If you're worried about 7%, just start 93 the other way is good. And I've read plenty of books. I've heard plenty of interviews that people say, don't give away that 7%. But for the stress, now you could hire somebody, you could pay them the $15 an hour or whatever it is. They make a mistake, you don't get paid. You then have to make sure you're supervising or having supervisors for your supervisors, and it gets really tricky for that.
Sure.
I actually have a friend of the family who's a medical doctor, and he pays his billing manager, the manager, more than he gets paid. She sometimes takes home more a year, and the billing game is very tricky. So my system that I have right now, it works great, and it's pretty good.
So Alan, you mentioned you see patients out of network. Is that correct? So they, you know, so they submit billing for your patients pretty much, right? Because they, it's not like the billing insurances, but they're billing for the patients to get reimbursed.
Right. So I type in so I verify all the patients' insurances myself. I can call them. There's websites that I do that. So when the person comes in, I can tell them to their face, here's your deductible, here's your co-insurance, here's the deal. I don't mess around. When patients call me, and I just tell them flat out what it is that it's going to cost. They have a deductible, and they'll, wait, but I can go to, you know, Joe Schmo PT for a $25 copay. I say, well, that's an in-network service. It's going to be a little different because they're going to see more patients at a time, quality over quantity. I totally respect what you want to do, especially right now in COVID. I get people that have these really bad stories, and I'm not going to report back to them like, yeah, I also didn't work for 2 months. I can barely afford going to the doctor right now. But the truth is, you set your prices and they have to respect it because you have to respect yourself. So I tell them what it is, and then I submit everything for them. Or rather, I do the documentation, my billing company does the submission, and then I get paid. And if they owe money, they have a bill.
Yeah, makes sense. Straightforward. Very good. And Alan, so what is your biggest expense, would you say? Running your practice.
Yeah, rent.
Right?
My sanity. My sanity is probably my biggest expense. No. No, you know what the truth is? It's doing what I do. Monetarily, it's the rent. I mean, I'm paying a couple $1,000s a month now, and you have the internet, and you have the lights, and you have all this. That's the biggest expense. But the biggest expense really is I don't see all the cool memes and forwards and this and that because I am looking at my patient all the time. And some of them, you look down at your phone and they check out, hey, excuse me, hello, I'm over here. So your sanity, your time, I mean, I have friends that are like, hey, I texted you at 11 today. Where have you been? I'm like, I haven't had a chance to eat lunch. I haven't had a chance to look at my phone. You have to focus on your job, which it's funny because in the business world, I have friends that work in high-end jobs. They admit they do not do any work on a Monday until after lunch. I'm like, what do you do? They go, I don't know, I come in, catch up with people, check ESPN, do this. I said, you can sit at work. And they go, well, yeah, you know, work starts at 9. I get there at 9:15. In our field, you can't get to work late, and you can't even show up a minute early. You have to show up a couple minutes to a half hour even, and you are on all day, and you're talking and you're focused. And then I get home at the end of the day, and most days, good days, my girlfriend says, how was your day? Tell me about your day. And I say, I don't want to talk about it. I don't.
So you're drained.
I'm done. I just don't want to talk about it right now. I'm drained. So really, I mean, you're looking for a number, but it's your sanity sometimes. And it's good to learn how to check out and sit back and watch something and do something you want to do.
Alan, so how many hours a week do you work? Actually, let's talk pre-COVID. How many hours a week did you work pre-COVID?
Treating.
Let's talk about treating And then we'll, I guess, include some management time in there as well.
I usually try to do 9 to 4:30, 9 to 5:30 is probably a typical day for me. So that's about 8 patients, maybe 9 patients. So call it 9 hours. And I'll do that 5 days a week.
And on
And
top of
then
that, you'll do documentation and
on
whatever.
top of that, I'll have documentation and some things I didn't get to. And
So
again,
how many hours a week would you spend on documentation, treating 8 to 9 patients a day? Weekly?
a couple. If it's evaluations, let's just go with like
All together, evals and treatment notes.
just the notes. Maybe, well, doing the notes when the patients are there are mindless. I don't know, but just extra.
Yeah.
It's also hard to sit down and bang out 3 hours worth of note.
Sure.
So I might scamper it around, but I'll go with like 3 hours extra a week, even just going through. And then of course you have all the other stuff that is unrelated. So just doing documentation, that's one thing. I do have some patients that need authorization submissions. I have patients that
Well, I don't network. You have authorization submissions?
There's some, yeah. Cigna has a couple, yeah. It's not the like in-network is every visit, but out of network, it's usually not hard. Usually you just have to, you can't request 80 visits, but they'll give you 4 visits at a time, and then you send the notes, and then you send the functional scores, and it's just, see, that's the funny thing with out of network is because they pay more, they make it more difficult for you. They're not going to just keep handing over hundreds of dollars per visit. They make you jump through
insurance. I mean, I say insurance is an enemy, but sometimes we have to live with them. You know, certain areas like Manhattan. I've had people that interviewed in Manhattan, and there's, I would say, majority of people I've spoken to the out of network. But things like Brooklyn or Staten Island, you can't really be out of network. These people don't have those nice insurances, so you have no other choice but to be in network. So, Alan, and business management aspect of your business, how much time would you say you spend on that?
Again, it kind of always flows in with what you're doing, but I'm on my phone at night, checking texts, checking emails. It depends, but it could always add in another hour or 2 a week, just as far as, forget about like come tax time. So that is completely random. But then when you're getting all your stuff in order with all your 1099s and different things, and sometimes I still have to go to the bank. I mean, it's time. It really is time. And you go there sometimes because I have patients that will pay with a check, or patients that or I get checks in the mail, and there's always extra time. It is. But I tell you what, man, if it's a choice of working 50 hours a week or working 10, I'll take the 50 right now.
I hear you. Alan, so what are your favorite continuing education resources for physical therapy?
I tend to be more the at-home variety, just because I am always, when we say continuing education, meaning actual CEUs getting credits.
Sure.
I used to take all the courses, the Maitland, the Mackenzies, the Paris. I've done it, IPA, and you sit there long enough and you just start to realize, now I would get little nuggets here and there, and I would get better with my hands, but it just is a big money and a time suck. So I've kind of given up on that. That being said,
you're doing online mostly. I mean, obviously now, but even pre-COVID, you were doing online already.
Yeah, I was doing a lot of online training, and the online continuing ed stuff is not the best, and I don't even take it that seriously. It's these online open book kind of silly tests, but I do so much education via YouTube, via friends that are therapists.
Sure.
There's so much to learn out there, but of course you have to get your CEU, so you have to do your official Con Ed.
Absolutely.
But if I can't, what is New York, 36 hours for us? Like I do I don't think there's a day that goes by that I'm not online learning, looking, evaluating, because some of the stuff is bad. Some of it's bad information, but going and learning and thinking, and I'm an Instagram guy myself, and I used to have more of a business account. Now it's just more kind of personal, because I found that it was good for patients that I knew that liked me, but it wasn't getting me new business.
Sure.
But I'm learning stuff on Instagram all the time. I'm learning different exercises, new tips and tricks and things out there. And I love that stuff because it's so creative, and I'm guilty. I'll just admit it. My biggest flaw is that you start to do the same exercises with the same people, and it starts to get boring. And sometimes you just need to go back and be like, all right, what's a new way to make this? And it's more fun for you. So just that's what I kind of said about like getting new toys and things it's great for the patients. They love it, but it's good for you too. I mean, how many times can you look at somebody do the same exercise all day?
Sure. Absolutely. Definitely. It's repetitive. Definitely. Alan, so what is your long-term goal? What do you see yourself in 10 years? What do you see your clinic in 10 years?
I I don't know. You know, my personal struggle right now is that Manhattan is very difficult to grow in. And I have been flirting with the idea of not expanding, but moving. Probably I'm originally from Baltimore, Maryland, and I'm more used to suburban lifestyle. And I think I've been here for 11 years now, and I need more bang for my buck. And I mean that with space and with time and location and office. And I'm currently debating sometime in the next year or two to move to somewhere where I can get more of that, whether it's, I always say it's up, right, or left, meaning am I going to Queens, Long Island? Am I going to Connecticut? Or am I going to Jersey? And because my family and my life is more south and I have friends in Jersey, that'll probably be the winner. So I
Sure.
think in 10 years, I would like to have a bigger space. I I really love what I do so much. I don't know if I want to hire somebody. And that's so crazy because if I want to automate or do things differently, it's the better thing to go. But when you want to take a sick day, you can just look at the numbers and you're thinking, all right, I work today, my company makes $0, which is the same thing as paying X amount of dollars. And it's,
Sure.
I mean, what's a vacation day? I haven't been paid for a vacation day. I pay to take a vacation. Oh, there's a great deal. We can go to France for 5 days for this much. I'm like, yeah, but it costs me an extra amount. I mean, it's not a deal for
So do
me.
you take any vacation? Have you taken vacation in the last 5 years?
I do. I took my first, you know what I did? Right before I opened up my clinic, I went to Oktoberfest with my friends. We went to Germany and I said, this will probably be my last big vacation for a while. And I was single for a bunch of years, and going on vacation single isn't the fun. So I did a lot of weekend things with my guy friends and with my family. And then I got into a great relationship and we did, not this past, so 2018, I did a 9-day trip to China. So glad I
Mm,
went then. And then last year, one of my buddies got married in Greece and we did another 9-day trip to Greece. I don't know if you've
mm.
ever been. If it's on your list, move it higher. It was one of the best trips I've ever been on. And so, yeah, so what I'll do is I'll work like a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I take that Thursday, Friday off, and then I take 5 days of work off Monday, Tuesday. And then I usually come back the following
Nice.
Monday,
Nice.
Tuesday. So
Yeah.
it sucks, but you know what? If you're working
Yeah. I mean,
51
listen.
weeks a year, you have to take it off. So I give myself the one vacation. And if I have patients that absolutely positively have to be seen, which usually is like one or two, I have friends that'll come fill in and see them for me.
All right. Sounds great. Sounds like a true small business owner has to sacrifice a lot of things. But still keeping his clinic afloat. And very very similar to when I ran my clinic. Very very interesting. Alan, I want to thank you for your time today. It's been real. Thank you for all
Yeah,
this
man.
information. We have a lot of clients that don't know how to start, or they're looking to start a clinic and they're just not sure what it's going to take. So listening, to a person that's been running his clinic for 5 years, what it takes, as I said, to manage day to day, and how many vacations able to take. That's great insight for those people that looking. Okay.
Yeah, it looks very easy, but it's worth it. It takes time, but people who want to do it, they just have to jump in and do it. And like I said, I make mistakes all the time with anything, whether in my daily life, and you have to live with it and you have to grow. And it's funny because like I have my own podcast. It's Booze Your Daddy, BOO''S. It's a kind of like a Who's Your Daddy, but we also drink beers on the show with one of my friends, and
Nice.
I tell stories all the time. And it's basically, here's one time I put my foot in my mouth, and as I talk about things on there, people are going to make mistakes. Just don't make the same mistake twice. That is the one thing I could say for people.
Yep. All right. Alan, thank you. Talk to you.
Thank you so much for having me.